It may not be the bowl game we expected the Oklahoma Sooners to be in, but they're in it. And it should be a very intriguing contest. The Oklahoma Sooners versus the Florida State Seminoles in the upcoming Cheez-It Bowl. And I'm here joined today on Couz's Corner by Jay Smith with Unfair Sports, who covers Oklahoma. And I'm here with TJ Pittenger, who covers Florida State. How are you guys doing?
What's going on, everybody?
Man, I'm good. Thank you guys for hanging out tonight.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming on. And by the way, everybody, want to make an announcement. I have just recently signed on to be part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. So Couz's Corner will now be part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. And I appreciate those guys for allowing me to be part of their family. So, but without further ado, Jay, let my listeners know where they can find you at, my man.
Yeah, you can find me over at Unfair Sports. Just search me on YouTube. That's where I'm talking OU football, college football. And on my podcast itself, I talk sports in general. And I'm going to have a Sooner-specific podcast that'll be announced at the beginning of the year.
Awesome. How about you, TJ?
Yeah, so all of our content is on YouTube, and you can look for it on social media. You can look for Double Fries, No Slaw, a little ode to Guthrie's. We had a little conversation about that before we got started, but yeah, Double Fries, No Slaw, the correct way to order your chicken tender box, whether it's Zaxby's or Guthrie's or Cane's or wherever. It's all FSU content, though. So awesome. A bunch of FSU stuff. YouTube, Twitter is just my handle, TJ Pittenger. I'll put my last name on here so you guys can see it, but good stuff.
Well, I've got everybody look, I've got our Twitter handles, mine, Jay's and TJ scrolling along the bottom of the screen there. If you want to interact with us on Twitter, we'd love to interact with you. Come check us out. Obviously, you're here at Couz's Corner right now. You can find me here on YouTube. You can find me on podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. So let's dive right into this game, gentlemen. It's going to be an exciting game. It's one I'm looking forward to. I think it's a very intriguing matchup. Oklahoma versus Florida State, two blue blood programs, two teams that have won multiple national championships. Jay, I'll start with you, man. What are your initial thoughts about this matchup? Are you excited as an Oklahoma fan?
I mean, this isn't the season that we expected, but at the same time, I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of shocked that we're playing Florida State in this game. Looking at the records with OU going 6-6 and then Florida State going 9-3, I did not expect this invitation to happen. I didn't expect Oklahoma to get a bowl game, honestly, of this caliber. But OU has ended up in this bowl game in the past. I think the last time was in 2014. They played out in not the Cheez-It Bowl at the time, the Capital One Bowl, if I'm correct, at that time. And when I initially looked at it, I'm like, okay, going against a blue blood program, we're going up against a team that's actually trending up. I mean, it's been a kind of a rough season, but at the same time, it's still been pretty solid for Mike Norvell and his regime. Honestly, I know with some Florida State fans that I know, a few friends of mine that love Florida State, they were like hoping that he ended up getting fired just so they can go after Dillon. And I was like, that ain't gonna happen. This is still a pretty solid season. He's still a solid coach, still can recruit. I mean, it's not easy, but at the same time, he's gonna make some things happen over there in the ACC. So my initial reaction was, how in the hell we get this lucky? But to go against the number 13 team in the country. But at the same time, I know that overall, talent-wise, Vegas considers us a top 25 team, even with our horrendous record. So I think it's going to be a good matchup. I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these two offenses go at it in this game. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
TJ, what are your thoughts on the game, man?
Yeah, so I think FSU fans are pretty happy with the matchup. You were talking about, it kind of being weird that they gave the 9-3 team up against the 6-6 team. I thought that if there was any kind of common sense in the world, they would have just put Oklahoma in the Vegas Bowl to play Florida, two 6-6 teams, and put Oregon State in the in this matchup. But yeah, obviously bowl tie-ins and stuff. You'd have had two 9-3 teams, but because of the tie-ins, you get matchups like this that, I don't know, kind of unfair for teams that at times maybe to have to go and play a 9-3 team. Florida got their head beat in. I think Florida State fans were really, really happy about this matchup when all the projections were coming out. It was either Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Maryland, or Minnesota. And I don't think they were super thrilled with any of those other three. Like, I don't think Maryland or Minnesota is a very sexy matchup. And I know Oklahoma's not been great this year, but I think it was the idea of like, hey, at least that's a blue blood program. Oklahoma's won the last 3 matchups, one in the national title, one in 2010, absolutely blew Florida State's doors off. And then 2011, people talk about that being the loudest game ever inside of Doak Campbell Stadium. Oklahoma came in as the number 1 team in the country. They opened up tailgate lots at 8 a.m. that morning for an 8 p.m. game, and they have never done that again since. Tallahassee was upside down. They now open at noon. People were a lot of rest that night. So, I think they're excited because it's a blue blood program.
Yeah.
Florida State fans do come into this matchup thinking that they have a pretty good shot at winning this game. I do think it's going to be high scoring and a lot of fun. But, I think that this is a matchup that fans are happy about for sure.
Right. And when you look at the Vegas odds, I mean, obviously Florida State's a pretty heavy favorite. ESPN Matchup Predictor has them at 64.7% chance to win versus 35.3 for Oklahoma. And then Vegas has it at -9 for Florida State. So what do you guys – I'll start with you, TJ, since you're front and center there. What do you think about the odds in that spread?
Yeah, so I like ESPN's FPI, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. Like, I think if these teams were to play 3 times on a neutral field, like, Florida State should probably win 2 of them. They've been better this year. And I think Oklahoma's a team that's dangerous enough to sneak in and get you once. Like, I think that, if Florida State doesn't bring their I think both teams were to bring their A game. I think Florida State's probably about where it's at, right? Like about a touchdown better. But I think if Florida State was to play off just a little bit, or if Oklahoma was able to elevate, we could have a fourth quarter game and anybody could win it at that point, right? And so, I think that's probably pretty fair. Florida State's won 6 in a row. They played Florida really close, but then pretty much blew everybody else out in those last 5 games. So outside of the rivalry, they've been really, really good. And I also think that, I think there I said it again, every single player that's available for Florida State is playing in this game, right? If you're out, like, there could be some injury stuff, but like nobody's opting out. Nobody's, even the transfers, most of them are playing in this game. And so I think that's helped for Florida State. So I think the spread and the odds are fairly accurate. Like I wouldn't have been, if this had been a 3-point spread, I'd been like, I really like the Noles there. But if it had been like 14, I'd been like, I think Oklahoma might cover that with that offense. So I think it's pretty fair.
I got you. What about you, Jay?
No, I'm going to be honest. That 9 seems low. And mainly because, just as TJ mentioned, there's no opt-outs for Florida State. Like, Jared Verse, if I'm correct, he's a senior, right? He'll be leaving after the season and going to the draft, right?
Say that again. Sorry, cut out.
Jared Verse, he's going to the draft, right?
He hasn't announced yet. I think he should. He's getting mocked in the first round, but I've been hearing some whispers that his grade is actually second round. And so if that's the case, I think he's got a little bit of a decision to make. NIL, work yourself into the first round. So he hasn't announced yet. My gut says like 70-30 he leaves, but 30% is still quite a lot.
Yeah, I've seen him mocked in the first a few times, and that's why I was kind of curious if he actually made the announcement or not. But outside of that, that's kind of the thing with us. Like Oklahoma, we've already lost like 3 or 4 players that's not going to play in the Cheez-It Bowl. Eric Gray's not expected to play in this game. Jalen Redmond, our 5-star defensive tackle, is not going to play in this game. And so it's going to be a lot of young guys. We're going to be bringing in the young players, and especially since this is a newer regime, and Coach Venables is now trying to get his players, I guess you could say, because every coach wants the opportunity to bring the guys that they want in that can fit what they want to do. And so this year was him playing with other other coaches' players, last regime's players, as well as kind of a piecemealed class that lucked out and finished top 10, but a piecemeal class of players that they had to convince to stay and come in. And now this year is the one that's all his guys. These are the players that he wants. So we've got a lot of young players that's going to play. And with all the opt-outs, honestly, when I saw the 9, I was like, that's low. I feel like that should be higher. I feel like Florida State's going to really, really show out in this game. The Sooner defense is atrocious right now. They're still trying to figure out this complex Brent Venables defense. The offense, of course, is going to be what it is. Lincoln Riley and staff has done a fantastic job of recruiting high-end skills position guys on the offensive side. So that's not the nail's ever concern. It's always been the defense. And so now we're just trying to figure out how to taper that down to where we'll be able to handle this Florida State offense. And so seeing that number, I'm like, man, that should be 14. Honestly, in my eyes, I think it's a 14-point spread. 9 is just it's too generous. It feels like it's giving too much credit to even the way that Oklahoma's played. Now with the extra practices, the young guys getting to play, they may go out there and ball out and keep it close. I can't even say yay or nay on either side. But overall, like TJ and like you mentioned, Couz, I think it's gonna be a really fun game. I think it's gonna be a fun game to watch. I plan on going to the game just because I think it'll be just exciting to see it out there. Only thing for me is I'm kind of getting tired of playing these Florida teams in Florida. It seems like every time we play a Florida team, it's in the state. The Orange Bowl for national championship was in Florida against Florida State. We played Florida International Championship at the Orange Bowl. It just seems like we keep playing teams at their home states.
Yep.
Kind of fascinating.
Yeah, West Virginia's had to do that a few times. We played in a bowl game one year. I think it was the inaugural the bowl game they have, the Pinstripe Bowl. First Pinstripe Bowl they ever had. We played Syracuse. I'm like, really? We got to play Syracuse.
And you guys played us down here in Bowden's last game too.
Yes, we did. I actually, if I'm not mistaken, Bowden requested that game, did he not?
I wouldn't shock me just being in Florida, get your last game in Florida, and playing against West Virginia too.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
I heard that. I don't know if it's true, but I had heard that he had asked if there was an opportunity that he would like to play West Virginia in his final game. And,
it's fascinating.
Of course, you know, who says no to Bobby Bowden, right?
Yeah, not in that situation.
But I'm glad you guys actually talked about the opt-outs because that was actually what I was going to get into. So, any major injuries for Oklahoma, Jay?
No major injuries, just opt-outs. That's really where we're running into those problems, like not having your top rusher, Eric Gray, over 1,000 yards and losing out on some defensive players. It's gonna bite us. Our tackles, if I'm correct, Anton Harrison as well as Wanye Morris will not play in this game.
Wow.
And so, yeah, you're losing some big pieces, and a lot of them are going to play in the Senior Bowl instead, so they can up their draft stock. I get it. At the same time, I also, when it's out, my guys opting out because I want to see the young guys play anyway. I want to see a glimpse of what next season's going to look like. Give them the opportunity to really get reps. Like, of course, I want to win the game, but at the same time, it's so much to me better to see what players are coming down the line so that the fan bases can get excited about what they're going to see.
Right.
I just hope we don't lose. We need to not have a losing season. It'll be the first losing season we've had since Bob Stoops started in 1999.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Has it been that long?
It's been that long. No losing records since. The lowest was 8-5.
You guys are spoiled.
Times. Yeah, very. Very. Why do you think this fan base has lost their mind this season? They've been spoiled.
Speaking of that, I know this is a little off topic, but I want to get your feel for that. What is the temperature right now about Brent Venables? I know he's only been there a year, but
the logical fans recognize that he's been there a year, and they've also recognized that the one problem we had with the last regime is the same problem we have right now. We don't have a good defense. Offense is still a high octane. We're a top 15 offense in the country. We've been that all season long, even with Dillon Gabriel at quarterback. And I like Dillon Gabriel personally. I think he's a really solid quarterback. Mm-hmm. The problem with him is that he's not a world-beating quarterback. He's not Caleb Williams. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not Baker Mayfield. He's not Jalen Hurts. You know, you get where I'm going with that. Mm-hmm. He's not that guy that can go out there and win games by himself.
Right.
And that's the thing that our fan base has been used to, is a quarterback that would just go win every game by himself. They don't even need anybody else. I'm going to go out there, I'll run for 150 yards, I'll throw for 300 yards. No matter what, we're going to win this game. And so looking through the games last season, we had about 6 games of 1 point of a score or less that we could have easily lost if the quarterback didn't save the day. And it was mainly because just the type of players that was recruited by the last regime. And with the way Venables and them used them the first 3 games, you really could tell it was all athleticism. Like, they were just out there just doing their thing. But when people got film on them, they recognized, okay, we're going to exploit you in these different ways, and they just didn't adjust. And it's not the coaches didn't adjust, the players weren't adjusting themselves. Like, they were just keeping those old habits. And so right now the pulse is, for the logical fan, they understand that we got to see a big refresh, and we're starting to see that now. We're seeing players go in the portal. We see players coming back. We're starting to see those players line up the way we want it to. And as long as this class hits the way that we expect it to, I think we'll be fine going forward. But outside of that, the irrational ones are mad because we couldn't do the same thing with Dillon Gabriel that Caleb Williams did this year, in which he won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I get it. Totally get it. That's like the fans we have that think we should be Alabama. You know what I mean? Like, our fans are mad because we're getting group of 5 guys out of the portal.
Yeah.
Hey,
even Alabama gets a group of 5 guys out of the portal.
Speaking of group of 5 guys, Jared Verse is over there at Florida State.
Yeah, exactly.
You can find some gems in there.
I know. Well,
yes.
The problem is our coaching staff has not done that. They have pretty much missed on about every guy they've gotten. So it's kind of put a bad taste in people's mouths. But that doesn't mean you just totally give up on. You just got to find the right guys.
Right.
But our fan base is, anytime we get a group of 5 guy, like, oh, this is terrible. Same thing as last year. I'm like, no, it's not the same guy. Different guy.
Let's see what he can do first.
Yeah, really. So I get it. We have some irrational fans. I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty. I've been irrational a few times myself.
Hey, fan is short for fanatic, so
exactly.
don't feel bad about that at all.
Exactly.
We've all done it. We've all had our moments. I try to be even keel on the show, on mine, and talking about it, and just remind folks, hey man, it's a process. This is it. The difference between Brent Venables coming in and Lincoln Riley coming in is Lincoln Riley was offensive coordinator for like 3 years before he got the head coaching job. So nothing changed besides his title. He stayed offensive coordinator. He stayed in charge. That's it. We didn't see a big refresh on staff members around him, whereas Venables came with basically the entire defensive staff from Clemson to replace most of the people that Lincoln Riley took with him to USC, or like Jamar Cain left and went to LSU, which was a good choice by him. It's going to take a little bit of time. It'll take a season. And even with that, strength and conditioning, we brought back Schmitty, who was there from at the beginning of the OU regime, back when we had those big, strong linemen and linebackers out there just mauling folks. We brought him back, and it takes you about a year physically when you go through an intense workout program for your body to adjust. And you could see it. Those dudes didn't have legs most of the time. They were worn out. And granted, you get a new workout system in, these players get used to it, and boom, you're good. It's going to take some time, though.
I got you. What about the temperature around Florida State, TJ?
I think that people are pretty happy right now. We were talking about, Oklahoma hasn't had a losing season since 99. Well, Florida State hasn't had a winning season since 2017. So our last 4 years, 18, 19, 20, and 21, have all been losing seasons. Florida State's over-under this year in Vegas was 6.5, and I think Florida State fans thought that they would win 7 games when they looked at the schedule. I think that they thought that in a best-case scenario, maybe they'd get to 8, and now they've got an inside track to get to 10. And so you're finishing 3.5 games better than you were expected to finish. I think fans knew that this was a rebuild. Willie Taggart in that regime and really, the last couple of years of Jimbo really left Florida State in the mud, and Norvell had a lot to climb out of and has maybe done that just a little bit faster than we expected. Like, I think most fans kind of thought that this would be the 7-8 win year, and then next year maybe you could make that leap to 8, 9, 10.
Right.
You might be at 10 in this year, and they've got a lot of guys coming back trying to line up for a run in 2023. And I don't know what that run means. I don't know if that means knocking off Clemson or really running for more than just the ACC. But yeah, fans are pretty excited with how things are going right now. We were talking about the portal. I think Norvell's done a fantastic job in the portal, going from Jermaine Johnson to Jared Verse there at end. They also put Kier Thomas in the NFL, who was a transfer. Fabian Lovett and Jamie Robinson are 2 guys that are, if they don't come back, they're going to get drafted this year. Jamie Robinson winning all ACC first team safety. Dylan Gibbons winning all first team ACC offensive lineman, pulled him from Notre Dame. Trey Benson had a total of like 6 carries at Oregon, and he's 35 rushing yards away from hitting 1,000 this year. He led the ACC in broken tackles. Taggart got him, but Jordan Travis was a transfer. And so they've been able to do it through the transfer portal. The high school recruiting does need to improve and continue to get better. But I mean, even right now, they just picked up a commitment tonight from the number one OT in the remaining in the portal, the fourth best offensive lineman, Jeremiah Byers. We're talking about group of 5. He's from UTEP. They also picked up Jaheim Bell, a tight end from South Carolina. He's top 10 in on threes transfer ratings. And they had Fintrell Cypress, who was the number 1 player in the portal until Travis Hunter went in, on campus for like 3 days this weekend. And I think they're in a pretty good spot for him. So Florida State's, people say you can't win through the portal. I don't know if you can win at all, but you can certainly flip a roster pretty quick. And so Florida State's done a really good job in the portal. And that's really how Mike's been able to turn it around so quickly.
Yeah. So see, Mountaineer fans, group of 5 players can excel out of the portal.
No doubt.
You got to find them diamonds.
Oh, that's right.
Ooh, Jared Verse is so good. He was my favorite.
We just got to trust the coaching staff that they'll make the right decisions. Real quick, guys, I got to take care of some housekeeping here. I want to recognize my sponsor for this show. My sponsor is DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL and is my go-to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check this out. Right now, everyone can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, guys, what I want to do next, if you guys don't mind, is I'm going to look at the team stats. I'm going to share it with the audience real quick for these two teams and just kind of a side-by-side comparison of what they look like. Because I think that I'm somewhat of a numbers guy. And I think the numbers tell us a lot when you look at them. But you look at Oklahoma, the points per game, Oklahoma's at 32.9 a game. Florida State's at 36.2 a game. Points allowed, you've got Oklahoma at 29.6. Florida State only 19.7. So that Florida State defense has played well. Total yards, Oklahoma 472.2. Florida State 475.7. Yards passing, Oklahoma's at 255.6. Florida State's at 257.8. Yards rushing, Oklahoma's at 216.6. Florida State's at 217.8. Yards allowed, 450.5 for Oklahoma, 307 for Florida State. Passing yards allowed, 261.5 for Oklahoma, 158.9 for Florida State. So big advantage there for the Seminoles. And then rushing yards allowed, Oklahoma's at 189. Florida State is at 148.3. So defensively, obviously, the advantage goes to Florida State across the board. However, have they played an offense like the one they're going to be facing in this game, DJ? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think those stats they look good for FSU, but as you just kind of alluded to, Florida State's defense was really, really, really good against bad offenses this year. They were really good against Syracuse, who had a banged-up quarterback. They were really good against a Louisiana team that just, group of 5, not the same Louisiana team you saw out there last year with Napier. They were really good against a Miami team that the wheels had fallen off. They were really good against a Georgia Tech team that wasn't super powerful. When they played good offenses, they weren't very good. They weren't very good against Wake Forest. They weren't very good against Clemson, and they weren't very good against Florida at the end of the year. And so they weren't very good against Louisville earlier in the year. Probably the best offense that they did shut down pretty good was LSU. LSU had less than 100 yards rushing and less than 100 yards passing with about 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Florida State's defense did give up 2 drives late to obviously get that game a lot closer than it probably should have been. Right. But Florida State's defense was good against bad teams and very mediocre to below average against good offenses. Now, Florida State's offense is still really good, and so they were able to win some shootouts like Louisville and Florida. So I think that That's kind of what I expect. I think that Oklahoma will have some success offensively because our defense hasn't been great against good offenses, and I do think Oklahoma has a good offense.
What do you say to that, Jay? What are your thoughts on the stats and the advantage Florida State seemingly has, especially on the defensive side?
Oh yeah, and TJ hit the nail on the head. Defensively, they were really good against really bad offenses. That's what you're supposed to be, though. As long as your defense is showing up like they're supposed to in the game that they're supposed to show up, you usually can translate that a little bit against some good offenses. But there were some struggles against some really good ones. Like, I mean, the LSU one was really good, but that was the first game in the Brian Kelly era. So, of course, they were still trying to figure out how to even turn the wheel properly or even put the key in the engine. But that was perfect for Florida State to take advantage of because their team was established and prepared. They showed that they were prepared for that game a lot better than LSU was. And then from there, whooping up on the teams that they were supposed to beat up on. The Wake Forest game was an interesting one to me. I really thought that Florida State was going to take that one a little bit easier than they did, and then Wake Forest somehow ended up winning that game. North Carolina State, they were here and there or whatnot, and then the Clemson game, yeah, I expected y'all to beat up on DJU. I was a little disappointed in that game. If there was any, that was the only one I thought that you.
I don't know how much of it. I don't know how much of it was us and how much of it was him. But
right,
he played better that game than he played the other 11 that they were, or other 12 that they played. And it's just like, of course, man. Kid's a gamer and going to give everything he's got, but he couldn't play bad against us.
Right. That was a career game for the dude. I'm just like, wait a minute. This wasn't the DJU that I've been used to all season. He's making some solid passes. They've got, the run game everything was established in that game. It was really weird. And it did just feel like the defense collapsed in that one. But outside of that, no, the defense can do what they're supposed to do against the offenses they're supposed to beat. So I'm really curious to how this high tempo, high octane offense that Jeff Lebby has for Oklahoma will do against this team, especially because we won't have our main running back. So Eric Gray won't be there. We'll have it'll be all freshmen, honestly, running the ball because everybody else on the team is hurt. So you'll see a lot of Javante Barnes. You're gonna see possibly some Gavin Sawchuk. I don't think Marcus Major is going to play in this game because he's been hurt for like the last few weeks, lingering injuries or whatnot. So the question is going to be, what's our run game going to look like in this game? We'll still have Marvin Mims out there throwing the ball with Jalil Farouk, as well as I think Braden Willis is going to still play in this game. And so the question is going to be how we do with the run game to get the passing game established. Let's put it that way better. Then at the same time, with us losing our two big tackles, how are we going to stop Jared Verse? Hopefully y'all put Verse on our left side so that Dillon Gabriel can watch him the entire game and just know when to get rid of the ball. But being smart that Florida State is, they're probably going to move that man around. By moving him around, Dillon Gabriel's a lefty. You put him on the right side, it's a good chance he's going to get through the hole and he's going to go and hit him. And so I'm just hoping that there's no creativity there. There will be, but I'm just hoping it's not. Do us a solid and not be creative in this game so we can keep it going. But no, I think the run game has got to get established. Our defense is not very good. But with the young players playing, hopefully we see a lot more of the athleticism go out there, and hopefully this whole year's worth of practice has come together and it finally just clicks for them in at least one of these games to keep it close. I just want to see it be a close game because I think it'll be fun seeing these offenses go at it because Jordan Travis is a baller. I'm uber excited to see him go. And honestly, that's the one thing that we suck at stopping is running quarterbacks. If you noticed, Max Duggan beat the dog snot out of us. So did Adrian Martinez. You go down the list of everybody we played in the Big 12, a running quarterback is what beat us. So that's kind of why I'm nervous in this game.
Yeah. All right. So you kind of segued into what I was going to ask you next, and that is score prediction. Can you give me a score prediction, Jay?
Ooh. Oh, I hate to say this.
I know in these bowl games it's really tough because so many guys are out, but just heck, just for fun.
45-40 Florida State.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest.
Okay. DJ, what you got?
Yeah, I like something like that. I think, I think Florida State, I haven't really thought about this yet, so I don't know why.
That's okay. I know I called you.
we're doing our preview show on Monday. So yeah, I think Florida State does get into like the high 30s, low 40s. So I'll say, similar to that, like 41-31. So I like the Noles by just around that 10-point mark. I think it's close. Maybe they get one late to kind of put it out of reach. But I do think this is going to be a fun game. I think that I don't think it's a blowout by any means. I think that Oklahoma's offense keeps them in it. Yeah, 41-31. We'll ride with that.
All right, and I'll give mine. I'm a Big 12 guy, and normally I would pick Oklahoma in this situation because it's Oklahoma. But with that many guys opting out of this game, I think that changes the entire dynamic of the game. Florida State would probably be favored anyway, but still, even with that, I think they should be like back to what Jay alluded to earlier. The spread should probably be more than 9, in my opinion. So I think Oklahoma wins it by at least 2 scores. I think Florida State wins by at least 2 scores. I think so. I'm going to say probably 41-20, 41-28, something like that. 42-28, somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
I think it's where it'll land at the end of the day.
That's fair.
So I do think Florida State covers. All right, guys, off topic a little bit, but real quick. But once again, before I go, I got one more question. Before I go, real quick, everybody go check Jay out at Unfair Sports on YouTube. Go check TJ out. Double Fries, No Slaw on YouTube. He's covering Florida State there. That's still the coolest. I believe that's the coolest YouTube name I've heard yet. Jay, I got to be honest.
Yeah, I'll tell you the thing that hyped me up the most in my entire life was the week we started the pod. We tweeted it, and Andy Staples of The Athletic quoted it and said, "This is the coolest podcast name I've ever seen in my life."
Yes.
And I was like, "I've made it." Like that's all I needed was like that quote. And so like I know Andy, and I was like, I know him through like friends.
Right.
So I got his info and messaged him, and I was like, "Hey, like you quoted my show. Like, will you come on the first?" So he came on the first episode. So Anyway, yeah, I appreciate it. Some people are just like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen." So thank you for being on the other side of that and not
a problem. No, not dumb at all. It's different, man. It's different.
I love it.
It's good to be different.
Yeah, no doubt.
Makes you stand out. And but anyway, go check those guys out on our channels. I'll put links to both in the description box of the video and of the description on the podcast platforms. They're on Twitter at Unfair Sports and at TJ_Pittenger, Pittinger. Did I get that right, TJ?
Perfect.
Okay. And I'm on Twitter at Couz 206 at COUZ 206 for those of you who are listening on podcast. But anyway, real quick, guys, where does Travis Hunter end up? Do you think he ultimately ends up in Colorado with Coach Prime? Jay, you go first.
Woo! So I've heard rumors floating that that he may not end up at Colorado, and then now we've seen a lot of the stuff where everyone's talked about there's multiple destinations on his list. Mm-hmm. I think they put out like a top 4 speculative list at like on 3 or something like that with like Georgia, USC, and I think Florida State was maybe on there, either them or Oregon. But it was interesting to see all of these other schools potentially in play. Honestly, if there's anywhere I think he ends up, I think it's probably Georgia. I mean, it makes the most sense. Georgia's big time. He's someone that could probably go out there and start tomorrow, even though they've got some crazy lockdown corners there. I can totally see him deciding that Colorado's not going to be for him. He wants to do something different. If anything, it's going to be whoever drops the biggest bag.
Yep,
I'll just say that.
I'm thinking too. Yep. That's what I think too. What about you, TJ?
Yeah, I think Colorado, if the money is anywhere comparable to what, these other schools are offering, I think if the money is similar, I think he'll follow Prime. But I've heard that Georgia or Miami might back up the Brinks truck, and he might end up at one of those schools. So as a Florida State guy, I'd rather him go to Colorado or Georgia and just keep him away from Miami. But yeah, I don't know. My gut still says Prime. I think I'd be, I wouldn't be shocked if, Georgia landed, a great recruit, right? Because they're pretty beastly at that. But I think I'd be more surprised if he didn't end up with Prime overall.
Do you guys think he'll play both ways, regardless of where he goes?
Oh, no. That he's done. That he's done doing that.
You think so?
Yeah, there's no way that you would try to do him like that at this level. Once you get to the Power 5 ranks, man, the two-sided ball just doesn't exist. It's hard to do. I mean, Charles Woodson was able to do it, but Charles Woodson was also a beast. It's not. That's not for. I don't see it ever happening again. I don't ever imagine us getting a player that can play both sides of the ball and be effective too. That's the other problem is once you go over there to Colorado and they start matching up against those potential first round wide receivers coming through Oregon and USC, etc. He's not going to be able to do that. It's going to be exhausting. He's going to be working the entire game.
Right.
And so, yeah, he won't be able to do that double-sided ball stuff.
Yeah, I agree. You agree with that, TJ?
He's so much better than everybody else at Jackson State, right? Like, I mean, he looks like a freak there, and he's a freak in general, right? He was the number one overall player for a reason. But he is. Like, he's just – it's like going out and playing with the middle school kids, right? Like, he's just that much better. He's not going to be – I mean, he's going to be better. He's not going to be that much better than everybody else. I think he'll still – I do think they'll throw him in – I mean, it depends on what he plays more. I don't know. I think he's a little better at wide receiver, but DB is kind of the money position. So I don't know which side he'll play. If he plays DB though, I could see him being, getting like 4 to 5 offensive plays a game. I could see them still using him in some packages, but if he plays wide receiver, he's done a DB. Like I don't think he plays that side anymore. So I basically agree. Like he won't be a regular on offense, but might you see him in a trick play? Like, might you see him thrown out there so the other team has to blow a timeout? I mean, you could all that gamesmanship stuff would be fun to see for sure.
Yeah, because I'm curious if anything, like whenever you start matching up against teams like Utah, Washington with Michael Penix Jr., who will be back next year, Bo Nix will be back at Oregon next year. When you start matching up against those schools that have those elite wide receivers, I mean, hell, Arizona State's looking pretty solid with Kenny Dillingham taking over at head coach, and he's starting to bring in some weapons. And with the way his offense is ran, if he plays corner, that's where I feel like it'll just be too exhausting. Now, if they throw him out there at wide receiver, I could totally see him going out there and play safety. But playing corner and wide receiver is going to be too tough, especially if they put him on special teams as well, because he also does kick and punt return. Yeah, you're going to need him to be a little bit more fresh when you play against even just the Pac-12 teams that they're going to play. I think their first game next year is TCU. So, that'd be interesting to see where they decide to put him if he ends up in Colorado.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch and see. I think the Travis Hunter watch is on right now throughout the country to see where he ends up because, like we were talking off camera earlier, everybody's got their eyes on Colorado right now and everything that's going on there, and see who he can pull in. I mean, he pulled in a West Virginia player, Taj Alston, our backup defensive end. We'll see how many roughing the passer penalties Coach Prime tolerates. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. TJ, is Florida State in the running for Travis Hunter?
I don't know, maybe 3 or 4% chance, right? Okay. If you gave Colorado 50 and you gave, Georgia and Miami 20 each, and then give USC 5, and then you split, Florida State and some other. I think Florida State probably reached out. I think they probably said like, "Hey man, how's it going?" I think it'd be negligent not to, right. But I don't know that that's. I don't know that that's realistic or not. I think they're. I think that Florida State's done a really good job of building culture, and I'll give a longer-winded answer than you probably wanted, but okay. I think they've done a good job of building culture, and I think that there are some guys in that locker room that really wanted Travis to play with them. Like they may be committed to FSU with kind of a thought of playing with the number one team player in the country. Maybe it wasn't the only reason they committed, but that did mean something to them. Ballers want to play with ballers, right? And so I don't have any, as a fan, I don't care. Like ever since the flip on signing day, everything's gone right for FSU. So like, it's hard to be really upset about much, but as the players in there, like, could there be a little bit of an ill will against that? Like, did they feel like they kind of spurned him? He was kind of silent in the group chat, I guess, around the recruits and stuff over the last, few months or whatever, or few weeks or whatever. So I don't know if he wanted to come to Florida State, they would certainly take him. They would figure out a way to mend everything over. But I don't know if Florida State's like putting all their eggs in that basket. I think, kind of a fool me once, shame on me, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Maybe don't get burned again type thing. But yeah, maybe like 2% would be my guess.
Okay. I was just curious because I'm like Jay. I did look at the list earlier, but I don't remember all the teams that were on it. So I do remember seeing Oregon and Georgia.
Yeah.
And I think USC, and I think there was a couple more on there that I just don't remember who they were. But
Yeah, it was narrowed down to 4 teams, and it looks like it's Georgia, Miami, USC, and Colorado is what On3 had tweeted out.
even though I'm not a Florida State fan, TJ, as a West Virginia fan, for reasons we won't get into in this video, there's no love lost for Miami for us either. 2 names: Akeem Mesidor and Daryl Porter.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. And Jamal Adai, their DB coach, may have had a little bit to do with that. That's all I'll say. But anyway, TJ, any last words, man, before we let you out of here?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks you guys for having me. I had a good time tonight, chatting a little football. Jay, we're doing a big tailgate, so hit my DMs and slide by the tailgate for sure. Bring some people.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'll hit you up.
Jay, any last words, man?
No, thanks for having me, Couz. I appreciate it. TJ, great meeting you. Great talking ball with you all. Looking forward to seeing this game and seeing how it turns out. So, yeah.
All right, everybody, go check out Unfair Sports and Double Fries No Slaw on YouTube.
Double fries, no slaw. Love it. I love it.
Check these guys out on Twitter. Interact with them. Give them a follow. If you're listening to this on podcast platform, please give me a follow. Please leave a rating, guys, on the podcast platform as well. If you like this, give me a 5-star rating. If not, give me a 1-star rating. That's fine too. But just leave a rating. Follow us. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. We appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, Q Country Roads.